gotta tell somebody.
This is the best thing I've ever seen.
Let's talk about that.
You need this. Listen to this.
Memorable and exciting.
Well, then be less boring.
I'm going to tell everyone. Wait here.
Mighty remarkable, Big Daddy.
Remarkable.
Welcome to Remarkable, a podcast for B2B marketers that deconstructs the most iconic moments in film, television, pop culture, and advertising for a single purpose: to give you, the B2B marketer, the same storytelling techniques that the pros use. In each episode, you will learn techniques from Hollywood, Pixar, Marvel, and beyond, from Spielberg's hands to yours, bringing remarkable content ideas to you every single week. I'm Ian Faison, CEO of Caspian Studios. This is Remarkable. This week, talking about B2B marketing lessons from Summer Baking Championship with our special guest, Director of Content Marketing at Splunk, Ann Smith.
The only thing sweeter than summer break is a summer bake.
These bakers will take your taste buds on a trip
to the sweetest competition
of the season.
Ann, how are you?
I am great.
An old friend.
Yes, true.
We worked on a crazy podcast together, what feels like many moons ago.
Often imitated. That was a fun project.
Really was.
Yeah, really creative. I mean, really creative. Thanks to you.
Oh, well, thanks to you. And here we are. Here we sit, getting ready to talk about baking and summer and Splunk and content and everything in between. Why the heck did you pick Summer Baking Championship?
Just because I've been watching it recently, and it's really entertaining. Some of these people are home bakers. They don't have a storefront. They don't work at a restaurant. They're just home bakers, but they do it out of their home and they're really good. And it's amazing what these people come up with.
I made an entremet style strawberry crunch bar. So I did 3 different types of ice creams for you. I did a vanilla, a strawberry crunch with freeze-dried strawberries, and a lemon syrup ice cream.
Like, they don't know the challenge ahead of time, right? They get to that episode and they're told what the challenge is, and they have 90 minutes to come up with whatever it is. And they have certain constraints, like there's a flavor they have to use, or there's a certain ingredient that they have to use, or it has to look a certain way. And there's a preheat, and then whoever wins the preheat gets an advantage, and then they do the main heat. So it's very competitive and it's creative, and it just blows my mind what these bakers come up with.
And zooming out, tell us what it means to be Director of Content Marketing at Splunk.
Oh, gosh. Well, I have an amazing team I'm very happy to be a part of. We work directly with the solutions marketing team within that so that we connect messaging to content. So I have a team of people that produces all of our survey-based research reports that we do, state of security, state of observability, which Splunk has been doing now for several years. We just launched in June a global survey called the Hidden Costs of Downtime, where we actually calculated the cost of downtime for the Global 2000. And we have great partnerships with our PR team at Splunk to launch those surveys. We have an executive blog called Perspectives, where we write a lot of executive perspectives. And then there's a part of my team that does email performance marketing. We create all the content for the demand gen campaigns for global integrated marketing. It is a diverse team. We are involved in a lot of different kinds of content. And the team themselves, if you look at their background, they have really interesting backgrounds that I haven't normally seen in my career in B2B. We have somebody who is, an opera singer on the side. We have somebody who's writing a memoir, who's a filmmaker, who was just at Cannes. We have a couple of people who have master's degree in creative writing. So they really have these diverse backgrounds. I'm always amazed about the experiences that they bring to content marketing. In fact, one of them I met just recently. I went to Colorado because my daughter was touring the school there. I went to Boulder and I met my colleague for the first time in real life. And we were chatting and I said, so how'd you meet your husband? We were just making small talk. And I told her, I met my husband online, and I asked her the same. How did you meet your husband? And she said, well, I was working in Abu Dhabi once. ... And I'm like, what do you mean you were working in Abu Dhabi? I mean, that just doesn't come up, right? So these folks have really great, diverse experiences that they bring to content at Splunk. And Splunk I've admired their content for years. They have a great reputation for writing interesting, Splunky content that is not your average B2B content. The Splunk voice is very fun and authentic and real. And it's just really a pleasure and a joy and an honor to be part of that team.
Meredith, what the heck is Summer Baking Championship?
So Summer Baking Championship is just as it sounds.
That is Meredith O'Neill, our amazing producer extraordinaire.
It's a summer baking championship. And so competitors are challenged to make summery baked goods with sort of seasonal flavors and things like that.
I think you did an exceptional job taking the cherry snow cone syrup and utilizing it in a way that tastes like it was supposed to be part of this dessert.
There was one episode where they were challenged to use an edible water balloon or water balloons. It has been one of the most successful shows on Food Network. So when I think about Summer Baking Championship and content, like it is all about capitalizing on a franchise that's already super successful. So it's one of a slew of shows that they offer on Food Network that are in a similar vein. So it's actually the 6th in this franchise of seasonal baking shows. So they have like Holiday Baking Championship and Spring Baking Championship. And this one is newer. So it premiered just last year and it's in its 2nd season. And Betsy Ayala, who's the head of content at Food Network, said, "We're excited to build on the momentum of the spring competition by expanding the franchise to include the new Summer Baking Championship." And the idea was that in the summer, people would have more time to watch TV, so they get more viewership, and it's working. The whole idea, as Anne shared, was there are 10 bakers, and they're given these summer-themed challenges, which we talked about. And by the end of the season, there are 3 competitors pitted against each other, and the whole idea is the winner wins $25,000. It's hosted by Jesse Palmer, who's like a former NFL quarterback. He was a Bachelor and then hosted The Bachelor.
Hey, everybody, Jesse Palmer here.
I was like, how did he end up on Food Network? And I guess it's through, he joined Good Morning America and then became this like seasoned TV personality. And now he's on Food Network. And so it's also judged by Duff Goldman, Carla Hall, and Damaris Phillips, who are judges on other Food Network shows. So I thought that was interesting. They're like using these personalities on different shows and sort of making the most of the talent that they have. And one thing I thought was interesting was they engage viewers on social media. So one thing they say in one of the articles is follow along with the competition on social media and tell us who you think should win the weekly challenges using hashtag Summer Baking Championship. So not only is it like having people watch it, right, but it's also like getting people involved on social media. And like I said, the show has done really, really well. It's received Food Network's best season 1 ratings among women ages 25 to 54. So super popular with its female audience, and that's since 2020, and among adults over 18 since 2019. And as of July 2023, after the first season, episodes had reached around 12 million viewers across Food Network, Max, and Discovery Plus. And Betsy Ayala said, "Baking championships have long been a favorite of Food Network fans who enjoy the thrill of the competition with the exquisite and visually stunning baked creations." So I think there's like this very beautiful aspect to it.
These look like a 4-year-old made them.
You're watching to see both, you know, amateurs and professionals make these beautiful, stunning designs. And as with a lot of like reality TV competitions, I feel like there's like an element of like, oh, I could do that. You know what I mean? Although there's so many times it's like, could I really? I don't know. So you sort of like put yourself in place of the contestants. There's always a favorite contestant that you are there to cheer on.
Bacon bros, this guy's being dudes.
But if I were to take sort of lessons from all of this, it's like capitalize on this recipe that you know already works and gets results. For content marketers, content creators, like this is all an example of doing creative work under pressure, which I think people face on the daily.
I'm looking around and everyone's doing their finishing touches under a pie. I'm freaking out because I still haven't finished my chocolate decor.
They engage their audience both on the screen and on social media. And I think like using the talent you have in multiple capacities, I think is super, super useful, especially if they're already famous, right? They're sort of capitalizing also on Jesse Palmer's sort of celebrity status as well. Although I don't know if people who are football fans would then cross over into the baking championship. But overall, it's like a super delightful show. And I'm wondering like if we were to really tie it to content marketing, and do you think that there are parallels between creating these beautiful sort of confections and creating content?
Absolutely. I mean, and you kind of, you know, touched on some of them, but they have to be incredibly creative, but within a time crunch, right? There's definitely a start and an end to when they need to get this dessert on the plate. And I think all of us in content marketing have kind of, that's the constant struggle of hey, I want to write this beautiful thing and I had this creative idea for it and I want to keep working on it and oh, I've got a new idea, and you want to keep polishing it and polishing and polishing it. And at some point you gotta publish it.
Carlos, what are we waiting for? For my chocolate to set.
Man, you got 1 minute.
The bakers on the baking championship, it's really interesting because some of them you can tell are very talented bakers and very creative, but the time management skill is what gets them in the end. They can't perform under pressure. So I think that's one of the parallels with content marketing. And then the other one is, and I mentioned this in my intro, that they are asked a lot to be inspired by memories, by their lives, by their childhood in coming up with these desserts. And so there's a lot of great backstory about these contestants, and they bring their families into inspiring the desserts they're making or experiences, or they honor, family members or spouses or something. And so they put so much of themselves in it. And I think, every writer brings their own experiences into what they're writing and how they position things, the angle they take, the examples they use. And so that's another way it's a lot like content marketing. And I guess a third thing would be sometimes on Baking Championship, they get thrown a curveball, right? They get thrown a curveball by the host who says, oh, by the way, after they've been working on it for an hour, by the way, there's a twist. You need to incorporate, prickly pear into your dessert, right? Or the baker themselves has had some sort of, malfunction.
The eclairs deflated on me in the oven.
Either your oven was too cold or you opened it and checked on them and then shut it before the proteins in the egg had time to solidify.
And their dessert's not coming out of the pan and they don't have time. And so they have to improvise. They have to go to a plan B. And I think that happens in content marketing, right? You are going down one path thinking that you're almost done, and maybe you get, a subject matter expert or a stakeholder who finally enters into the process, and all of a sudden they're like, no, this is not the angle, this is not the direction, this is not the message, and you have to start over. You have to kind of go to a plan B. So I think that is very similar to the Baking Championship and content marketing.
I kind of think if some marketers would commiserate with some of the baking competitors.
Yeah, without a doubt. Do you do a lot of baking, Anne?
I don't.
Do you do a lot of marketing?
I do a lot of marketing. I do some baking, right? I do some baking. I'll bake cookies. I'll bake a cobbler. Like I made this last year. My friend went on vacation to Oregon and I looked after her cat. And as a reward, she brought me Oregon blueberries from Oregon. And of course, what did I do? I made a cobbler. I looked up a recipe and I made a cobbler, and it turned out to be this great recipe. And I've made it twice now. I always bake a cake for my husband's birthday, for my kid's birthday. We have this great cookbook called the Cake Doctor Cookbook that I've had for years. And you take boxed cake mixes off the shelf and you add stuff to them to make them better. You add buttermilk, you add sour cream, you add espresso powder, you add cocoa. It's all these like ways you doctor the recipe, that comes out of the box. So I do that sort of baking, but nothing like what you see on this show.
I can't remember if I told you this, that my wife was a baker in this life. So she's great at baking and all cooking. She's a chef, but I'm bad at all of that. I'm just good at the microwave. That's my tool of choice. And the blender.
Yeah.
You really can't ruin anything in a blender. You just shove it in and then it does all the ruining for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And, baking is very, there's a lot of chemistry involved.
Yeah. It's scientific. You're right. It's funny. There's such an analogy to cooking and specifically baking for marketing, because there's sort of I'll talk about my wife because she's a great chef. And so I'll explain it like this. She's really good at following a recipe, and you have to do that to be a good chef, right? You need to be able to follow it because all the proportions matter, etc. But she's also good at, once the recipe is complete, when something doesn't taste right, figuring out what that is. Yeah. And that's something I don't have. I don't know. And this needs more cumin. I'm I have no idea, right? And I think that a lot of marketing is like that. We're people can sort of, it's like making a podcast, right? Yeah, you can go through all the motions. You can publish it. You can record it. You can cut the audio. It looks and sounds like a podcast. Much of the things that we hear all the time is there's so many podcasts out there. It's there's so many books out there too. But people are going to stop writing books? And I was no. so many TV shows, but like, which ones are your favorite? Like, that's the goal, is to make something good, not just to make something.
I'm not gonna lie, this is definitely a very hard challenge.
And I think a lot of people, when they bake, they just try to make something, and that's probably good enough. But then you have that friend who knows what they're doing, and they come to the party, and you're like, man, her lemon bars are so good. Or even worse, it's like everything she comes with is so good. And you're like, how are they so good at baking? It's like they take the next level, you know?
Well, and it's storytelling, right? And you know this. You've built your business on storytelling. And I kind of equate this to, I'm going to age myself, but back in the day when desktop publishing tools came out, remember Adobe, like PageMaker and all these tools came out, where digital tools where you could design and lay out pages and do graphics and things like that. And you could know how to use the tool. Like you could know technically how to use Adobe Illustrator. It didn't make you an artist. Doesn't mean, you have the good foundations of light and page composition and things like that, right? Well, content marketing, I think, is similar in that you can technically know how to write something. You can put sentences together. You can even use AI. AI could do it for you. But it's this telling a story that really puts it out in front, that makes it better than everything else out there. And I frequently, when I'm reviewing content that maybe an agency has written or in previous roles, where I'm reading it and I'm like, okay, yeah, this is correct, right? But I don't feel anything. It's just a procedural, right? If this happened, then this happened, then this happened, and it's just like, I don't feel anything. And people that buy software are people, right? Chief technology officers are people too. And it's the storytelling and the ability to connect emotionally with readers that really makes it more than just, I'm just following a recipe, right? I'm just checking the box. Storytelling is that extra layer of icing on the cake, if you will. How'd you like that? How'd you like my baking analogy there?
Yeah, well, and I think that the lesson for me is like, you got to taste it. How many times have you made a meal and you didn't even taste it? Where you're like, how's the soup? And you just put it in bowls and like, it doesn't matter how it tastes because this is what's for dinner.
Does anyone smell something burning?
So like, it could be horrible. This is what we're eating. And I do that all the time whenever I make food. I was like, does it need more salt? I'm like, I don't know. She's like, did you taste it? I'm like, no.
Yeah.
My food is always like criminally undersalted when I take it out because I'm like, oh, I just didn't taste if it had salt. But so much marketing is like that. Go back and read that thing a year from now. Was that a good post?
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, it was not good. Did you read it and like it? Did someone else on your team read it and like it? Like, it's probably worth, like, this is why, like, in media, you have an editor.
Right. And the time factor comes in again, too, right? Sometimes in marketing, you're just like, you have such a fast deadline that you don't have time to have your boss or a peer or somebody else look at it. And that's too bad. And the other thing I tell folks to do is, did you read it out loud?
Yeah.
Which I know, my team doesn't write video scripts or audio scripts or anything, but if I'm reading something in my mind, I'm reading it out loud. And if I'm tripping over words, then that's something that I try to tell people to try to read it out loud so they can kind of get the gist of it. And it is nice when you do have the time to really look at something else and get somebody else's opinion. But there's also a lot of writers who have a hard time, having somebody look at their work and give feedback.
Oh, yeah.
And
they better fix that.
Yeah, well, they got
Me too. You know who else does? Every single writer ever.
What is it, the expression about, letting go of your darlings or something like that?
Yeah, kill your darlings, yeah. But, it's so tough. It's really tough. And I struggle with kill your darlings because I'm like, is it necessary to the story? Mm-hmm. No, cut it out. Well, it was really good. Well, you got to kill it. I think most often people, maybe they leave their darlings in, but the opposite is also true, which is the stuff that stayed also stinks. So it's like, it's too verbose. There's too many words. I love the phrase, I just did a thing about this the other day is, write like you're not getting paid by the word, but paid by the words that you cut.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
Like that.
So, you write your article, it's 1,100 words. Now you get paid by how many words you can cut out of that thing.
I like that.
And like, those are the little tweaks. And this is, like, again, with the baking analogy, you see the people, it's like, this cake only has 7 ingredients. Well, that's way damn harder. It's easier to make a goldfish snack cracker delicious, which it is. It's way harder to make the Simple Mills cracker taste good. That's actually not do hexadrone hydrine nitrate, whatever.
Yeah.
Right? You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing. That's, of course, it's way harder.
Well, who is it? I think it's attributed to somebody, right? The famous quote, I would have written you a shorter letter, but I didn't have the time. Right?
Yeah, it's misattributed to Mark Twain.
Yes, right. Which I'm not sure.
There's no proof that Mark Twain didn't say it, but there's no proof that he did say it.
True. It does take
Blaise Pascal, by the way, is who originally said it in like 1600.
That's right. But that editing is sort of a forcing function because a lot of what my team writes are, web copy and things like that, or case studies that are in very templated things for the website. And there's a character count, right? There's a character limit. And sometimes it's really hard, especially when you're trying to express a message that is a very complex message, right? We sell software and it can be very complex to explain, but it's like, you got 5 words that you can put right here in this. And so you're trying, it's a good lesson. It's a good practice for writers to be in a box constrained by character count and word count, because it really forces them to cut out extraneous fluff and really get to the point, right? And I learned a lot of that in school. I took a lot of like broadcast news writing and script writing, and like, you got to get to the point, right? Or you're going to lose your reader. You've got, what is it, 6 seconds or something? That's the famous, stat that everybody quotes. It's probably even less now.
Yeah.
It's 3 seconds or people are going to like click off.
I honed my writing skills with 100 episodes of Often Imitated, and my editing skills, most importantly. And previous to that, was doing a similar type of a show. And we really embraced the phrase, when in doubt, cut it out.
Oh, yeah.
It's not worried, just cut it out.
Yeah.
Story's fine without it, I promise. And so this brings me to my next lesson. Can't oversalt it. Because the thing is, can't take the salt back out, right?
Oh, right.
Something that doesn't have enough salt tastes like crap or doesn't taste as good. But you can always add a little salt on the table, maybe spruce it up. Won't be as good as if, you made it with salt in there, I think, science. But man, you can't oversalt it. So much B2B content is crazy oversalted. And what I mean by that is it's full of features and benefits and buy my stuff and lacking substance, right? It's like the salt, the little bit of salt, if that's the features and benefits in this analogy. The meal of food is all good, but the little bit of salt gives it that extra flavor that turns it into business content, turns it into demand gen, turns it into a piece of content that can close some business for you. It's just a little bit on there. That's what accentuates it, But man, people just dump the salt on there, ruins the entire thing. And now you don't want to eat the whole meal.
Yeah.
And that is over and over and over and over again what I see in B2B content.
Yeah. And I forget who said this, but you should write about products and technology as though you're talking to a neighbor at a barbecue. And I added on to that at Splunk, just because this is a very Splunky thing to do. My thing is, explain this as though you're talking to your neighbor at a barbecue sipping sangria. Would you say it like that if you were talking to your neighbor? Now, in Silicon Valley, can get a little dicey because you might be talking, your neighbor might be like a chief technology officer here, right? But I do see a lot of content that is, we lean on the jargon as a crutch. And a lot of what we write, we depend on people in product marketing or solutions marketing who are developing messaging for us as reference. Sometimes we lean too much into that, and maybe we're not sure if we can really what kind of liberties we can take with the message. And that's something that, writers have to kind of work up to and work on over time. And I see a lot of, like you said, oversalted, just overwritten, wordy, like just superfluous extra words that don't really add any value. And it's a habit I see in a lot of writers. I've worked with agencies, I've worked with freelance writers, and it's one thing I'm always picking on when I'm editing other people's writes. It's hard to write for me. It really is. I'm sorry. I know that. I've been told that. It's hard to write for me because I really get in there and like tighten it, say it more directly. I never knew this was what it was called, but there's something called nominalization where you turn a verb or an adjective into a noun. And it happens all the time in product marketing, writing and jargon. And so there's just a lot of habits that we have to kind of flip around as writers. And I point out that. I point out wordiness. I point out passive voice. I point out transitions, right? You need to take the reader by the hand and lead them through this argument that you're making in this piece of content, gently guide them through with transitions and things like that. You're educating them. And then there's the hook. There's the opening hook, right? There's a killer intro that they can relate to. And I cannot take credit for this because this was at Splunk long before I came, but some of our standard, ebooks at Splunk start out with an anecdote about Star Trek or Lord of the Rings or Taylor Swift tickets, full stop. And it's really fun to be able to work at a place that allows you to do that kind of creative writing and relate technology and data to some sort of, popular experience that people can relate to.
I read this book earlier this year and it completely changed my mind about writing. And basically, the premise of the book was that everything that we have been taught about writing is incorrect. And that your writing style is whatever your writing style is. And that forget anything that anyone ever taught you. Forget punctuation, forget commas, forget sentences, forget the 5-paragraph essay, all that sort of stuff. I'm paraphrasing, but basically just write whatever you think. And it was super, super helpful for me to think that way because there's sort of two different types of writing as it comes to B2B writing. There's you writing as yourself and then you writing as the brand, right?
Correct. Yep.
And when you're writing as an individual, you should try to untether the audience's expectations as much as possible because you're just trying to deliver something unique. That's actually more important to be unique. Whereas when you're writing for as a brand, you want it to feel familiar. And so anyways, I did this for my newsletter and I started just writing however I wanted to write it. And it's completely changed how people read it. And I get so many compliments now on the newsletter. So many. I get a couple compliments on the newsletter. And people are like, I love the way that you write. And I literally just changed how I write, 6 months ago or whatever. And it was very freeing. And I think that the biggest thing is just writing way shorter and just telling one story at a time that is a single message that you're trying to lead people with. Just so many times we write an article and we want to pack 15 things into it. And it's don't just tell them one thing. Right. That's it. That one single thing. That's all you need to tell them. You don't need them to take away 50 things. Just tell them one thing. And that's usually enough. And I think if you take that approach to writing of I just want them to leave reading this thing with one singular lesson. And that's the thing that's going to stick. I'm going to have a killer hook. I'm going to have a killer story that supports it. I'm going to have some data and some information. I'm going to pull from other places and I'm going to land the freaking plane. You will be better off than trying to boil the ocean.
Why do you think writers feel like they need to put everything in the piece? What do you think drives them to want to shove it all in there?
To be comprehensive. I was listening to this interview with Seth Godin and Tim Ferriss, and Tim sent Seth an article that he was working on. And Seth sent back to Tim, I've talked about this before on the show, but I think this is fascinating. And he was like, the problem with your writing is that you write as if the blog comments are coming for you. So you try to take every single thing into account so that nobody can sharpshoot you. And it's hey, I'm drinking this mushroom drink that's sort of like coffee. Caveat, I used 3 ounces. I did this. Caveat, this is what I got here. Caveat, that day I didn't have that much water. Caveat, that way I did this. A million caveats. And he's it waters down what you're trying to do. He's write as if no one can come for you because it doesn't matter. All the caveats, all the other stuff, how comprehensive you're trying to be, you're actually just being confusing and you're not getting across the message.
So it's almost they're kind of writing defensively.
Exactly.
Yeah, that would be hard to do, but I guess I can sort of understand that especially if you're an influencer or a personality or that's doing your own newsletter and your own, you're an entrepreneur, you're running your own kind of business, right? And you see this on LinkedIn a lot now. There's a lot of freelancers and people consulting and doing a lot of stuff like that. And they are the brand. You are the brand, Ian. Yeah. You are the brand. And so people want, they want your personality. They want you. So writing as though you're you is what is the attraction. And I think there's a lot of other influencers and consultants out there that are leaning into that too. Like it's about their knowledge, but it's also about them personally and their personality. And especially folks like yourself, where we see these people on screen, on camera, and in their environment and their social media. And we get to know their dog who's sitting in the background, or the people that come in and out of the room, and it all gets wrapped up, together in this package. And people connect to it, right? They connect to the person as much as the knowledge the person is sharing.
Well, I think that people are obsessed with writing as if it's a research project and being correct.
Yeah.
So when you write that way, and you write like you're doing your senior thesis, you have 35 references. You have every single detail checked. That's like how we're taught to write. But like in reality, you're not covering all the variables for how this one CIO, should do X, Y, Z, how CIOs should think about, their data architecture. Like it's not the answer. It's not definitive. So you don't need to write a definitive article because it's not definitive. So if you free yourself of those shackles, Seth Godin said that his newsletter started becoming good when he switched from trying to tell people things to trying to ask people questions. And that's it, right? We're not trying to tell you, as a CIO to change your data infrastructure. We're trying to say to you, hey, maybe you should consider doing blank because it's worked for other people. This is how they did it. Worked for them. That might work for you. It might not. I don't know. Whereas that comes across as very authentic and that's probably true. Whereas if you said, I know that this is the right thing, you absolutely should be doing this, and I can prove it to you. You'd be like, yeah, but you're also just trying to sell me something. So if the only answer is you, that's not necessarily as good. And so I think that that's we try so hard to be comprehensive and to be definitive, but you're not going to be anyways. So why even try?
Well, I think technology buyers see through that, right? They see, they know that you're don't do a bait and switch on them, right? They can see, through that. And, authentic is always the way to go for sure.
What cool stuff you got coming up at Splunk?
Oh man. Well, we just started working on one of our other major reports, the State of Observability, which I think this is going to be the 4th or 5th year in a row. The data has come back. My writer is digging into the data and working with our stakeholders to interpret what it means. Then there's our perspectives. Executive blog is getting reinvigorated. We have a new editor-in-chief, and we just came back from our user conference in June, and we have all this great, interviews we've done with customers and sessions we attended. And so we have all this great insight that we've got a slate of content that we're going to be publishing on Perspectives by Splunk. And we're planning for, third quarter content, right? Which it's our third quarter, working a lot with product marketing and recommending to them, what we think they need to tell their story. So there's always something going on for sure.
What's your content strategy, Ann?
Oh, my content strategy. My content strategy is to really try to answer buyer questions, is really try to understand the buyer, what questions they ask. And if you look at, the buyer journey, how crazy and wacky it is, right? It's not linear. We know that. But buyers are asking questions all the time. Even after they become customers, they still are asking questions because they're still discovering, new things they want to fix or improve or understand. And so that's sort of a key foundation of content strategy. That's how we've been planning our demand gen content, is to try to answer buyer questions through content. But then the other pillar of the strategy is make people feel something, make it real for them. Don't write in sterile academic, features and, speeds and feeds, right? Make it real for them and make them feel something so that you can, kind of connect with them, right? They're going to be more likely to read it if you get them hooked in the beginning. And then I guess third is be helpful, right? And this is, Jay Baer says this, right? Just be helpful, help educate them without expecting anything in return, right? If you can help your customer do something better, learn something new without expecting anything back from them, really genuinely wanting to help them succeed, you'll have customers for life. Even if that customer ends up leaving that company, or let's say they end up not using your product for some reason, right? wherever that customer goes in their career and wherever you go in your career with that customer, you'll keep connecting back with them because you created this mutually beneficial, authentic relationship with them because you helped them. You didn't try to sell them anything. You actually genuinely tried to help them.
What's working for your audience right now?
Ooh, good question. Well, like I said, I mean, our primary research, the survey-based research we do is always huge because it's objective, right? And we have objective analysis and data to back up, what we're saying, but also we always try to infuse our own point of view in that. And Splunk's at a point in their maturity, 20 years of Splunk, that people trust what we say. They want to know what we have to say. They want to know what our experts think. And so when we're giving our opinion and our point of view, they listen to that. They also, in terms of like topics, right? Data management, how you do that cost effectively and still able to access the data when you need it, right? There's a lot of regulations now that require you to hang on to data for a long time for compliance reasons. So there's a lot of conversation about data management, AI, anything about AI people are into. We've, written a lot about that. Regulation about data privacy, data storage, compliance. And that's a worldwide thing, right? Different countries and states and regions have different, CIOs and C-level executives can be held liable now for a data breach or some sort of, breach that happens on their watch. And so some of the surveys we've done have talked about that chief information security officers they're scared that they're going to be held personally liable for a breach if they don't report it or they don't, get it under control. So also back on AI, like AI just touches everything, right? There's in security, they're worried that AI is going to make hackers more effective. Right? They can do bigger kinds of attacks. Even hackers who maybe are not that talented can become suddenly talented and become very effective because they're using Gen AI to launch their attacks. But on the same side, our data tells us that security professionals really think that AI is going to help us as well as defenders, that it's going to help us automate, it's going to help us detect faster, remediate faster, that it's going to help less experienced security analysts to up their game. There's a real skills shortage in the security industry. So I think that AI is huge and it's going to be that way for a while. Of course, I think some folks are interested in, we were bought by Cisco. And so we're starting the process of integrating the companies. And so anything about what our philosophy is and how this integration is happening and how we make each other better is of interest to our audience.
The book is called Several Short Sentences About Writing.
Oh, I like it.
That is the name of the book. It's an absolute trip. You read the first chapter and you're like, dang, I've never thought about writing this way. It sounded like that was your book. I should say this is the book that we were talking about earlier.
Yes.
And final thoughts about best advice for a director of content marketing.
Oh, best advice. I think my best advice is make friends. Make friends in your organization with all the people that you rely on to inform your content, that help you write content, that you draw insight from, that help activate your content. Content is the glue that holds and connects so many things in an organization, right? Global integrated marketing and PR and corp comm and product marketing and make friends, brand and creative, right? They design and lay out your content. Make friends. It's who you know. It's really who you know. Even in a small company, and I've worked in really small startup companies as well. And even in small companies where things are faster and, all you do is, just tap the person on your shoulder to get stuff done. Your coworkers really, they don't have to help you. They really don't. Like they don't, everybody has their own motivation and their own agendas, the best of us, every one of us does. And they don't really have to help you create content. And it never hurts to be liked. It just never hurts to be liked. You can be the best writer, the best storyteller, the best marketing whiz, the smartest product marketing people. But if you don't make friends and you're not likable and approachable, and if you can't, get along with people, negotiate, all the build consensus, then your career is going to be short.
And wonderful chatting with you. For our listeners, you can go to Splunk.com to learn more. Great chatting with you as always. And we'll talk again soon.
Yeah. Thank you so much, you guys.
In today's episode, you heard from Caspian Studios CEO Ian Faison and myself, Meredith Gooderham, senior producer at Caspian Studios. Remarkable was produced this week by me and mixed by Francie Goudreau. Our theme song is Solomon by Falak. Be remarkable and rise above the noise.